All right, so today we're learning section 5.2. We should be on page 211 in our books. Page 211. In example 1, we are finding the solution whenever we're adding with a common denominator. So we're adding mixed numbers with a common denominator. We have 48 1/3. You can write this horizontally or vertically. I just prefer horizontally. 48 1/3 plus 41 1/3. Now the first thing you want to look for in any time you're dealing with fractions, adding and subtracting fractions, the first thing you want to look for is, do you have an LCD? Do you have common denominator? Yes, you do. So now you can just add them. 48 plus 41 is? 89, very good. And then you just add your numerators. 1 plus 1 is? 2. And add your denominators? No. You leave them the same. Now, that's the one thing that even though you learned that way back in your early elementary days, it's easy to forget. Remember, when we're adding and subtracting fractions, we never add the denominator or subtract it. It stays the same. 89 2/3 is my answer. All right, now I want you to do this one on your own. I want you to do 3 1/8 plus 2 5/8. Sebastian, what'd you get?
5 6/8.
Very good. 5 6/8. Final answer? 5 3/4. Very good. Make sure you just reduce for your final answer. Always reduce. All right, now in example 2, now we're subtracting with a common denominator. Just one extra step here. It's generally the same thing. We have 6 7/9 minus 4 1/9. Now, the first thing, again, that we want to check for is, do we have an LCD? Yes, we do. We have a common denominator. Then we want to check, can we subtract the first numerator from the the first minus the second numerator without going into the negative? Yes, we can. So now we can subtract all the way across. 6 minus 4 is 2. 7 minus 1 is 6. 2 6/9. Final answer?
No.
What is it?
2 2/3.
2 2/3. Okay? So just one extra step. Make sure you can subtract the first minus the second without going into the negative. Okay? Before you subtract your whole numbers. Now, in example, let's go ahead and practice one of those. Okay, let's do 8 5/7 minus 4 1/7. Okay, what's the answer? 4 4/7. We just subtract it straight across. But again, we want to make sure. Common denominator? Yes. Can I subtract first minus second? Yes, so then I can just subtract it all the way across. Now in example 3, I'm adding these fractions. 4 5/6. So write example 3 in your notes and then write this underneath. 4 5/6 plus 3 3/4. All right, first step. What's my first step? Daniel? Find the LCD. Okay, these don't have common denominators, so I need to find my LCD. Starting with the biggest denominator. Does 4 go into 6? No. Does 4 go into 12? Yes, it does. So 12 is my LCD. Now I need to figure out what my numerators are going to be. So 6 times what equals 12? 2. So 5 times 2 is? 10. 4 times what equals 12? So 3 times 3 is? 9. All right, now I add them up, and I get 7 19/12. Final answer?
No.
Why?
Because it's improper.
Because I have an improper fraction, which means I can take a whole out of it. Okay? So if I can take a whole out of it, I'm going to add one more whole to my existing 7. And what do I end up with my answer? 8 and 7/12. Why? Because 19 minus 12 is 7, and that gives me my leftover amount. Okay? So I add one more because I could take a whole out, and 8 and 7/12 is going to be my answer. All right, now I want you to practice one. Let's do 1 3/4 plus 4 3/8. All right, Alicia, what's the answer? Very good. All right, so when you do 4 plus 1 is 5. And then we do need our LCD, so this should be 6/8 plus 4 3/8. So you get 5 and 9/8. But then you have an improper fraction, so you need to add 1. So your answer ends up being 6 and 1/8. Okay, raise your hand if you got that. Did you get that right?
Yes.
Kevin, did you get it? Okay, but you see what you got wrong? Okay. All right, now in example 4, now we're subtracting again. Okay, we're subtracting again. So now we have 6 and 1/6 minus 3 2/3. All right, what's my first step?
Find the LCD.
Find a LCD. What's my LCD? 6. So 6 and 1/6 stays the same, minus 3 4/6. All right, now what's my next step?
Subtract.
You subtract, but remember what I told you to look at. Can you do 1 minus 4 without going into the negative? No, so you need to borrow a whole. You need to borrow a whole, which means the 6 turns into a 5. And what does this mean? I need to look at my denominator. How many pieces are in the whole in this fraction? 6. So that's the same thing. If I'm borrowing a whole, 6/6. It's the same thing. So what am I doing? I'm adding 6 more to my numerator. Does that make sense? When I borrow a whole, however many pieces are in my denominator, that's how many I add to my numerator. So now my new fraction, and you don't have to write all this over to the side on your homework. I'm just kind of showing you. My new fraction is 5 and 7/6, or quiz or test. You don't have homework tonight. 5 and 7/6 minus 3 4/6, which equals 2 3/6, which reduces to 2 1/2. Okay? So whenever you're subtracting, find that LCD. Make sure you can do numerator minus denominator without, numerator subtracting each other. If you can't do that without getting a negative, you have to borrow. All right? Questions? Okay, now let's practice one, guys. Let's practice one. Let's do, guys, hush please. 8 1/6 minus 6 3/4. Go ahead and solve that. Okay, so let's go over this.
It's right here.
Okay. All right, 8 2/12 minus 6 9/12. Then you have to borrow because you can't do 2 minus 9. Okay? So you borrow, you make that a 7, and remember you add however many pieces is in the denominator, in this case it's 12, you add that to the numerator, 7 14/12 minus 6 9/12 equals 1 5/12. Raise your hand if you got it right. All right, very good. 1 5/12. All right, if you understand that, that's everything you need to know for 5.2.